Okay, so institutional capacity and stakeholder engagement are central pillars of effective project planning and implementation in public administration, particularly at the doctoral level, where projects are expected to produce systemic, sustainable impact. Institutional capacity refers to the ability of public organizations to plan, to coordinate, to implement, monitor, and sustain projects through appropriate structures, policies, human resources, leadership, and systems. Without adequate capacity, even well-designed projects struggle to move beyond paper plans into real, measurable outcomes that benefit citizens and communities. Equally important are stakeholders, the individuals, the groups, and institutions that influence or are affected by public projects. In complex governance environments, projects are no longer succeed through top-down implementation alone. They require collaboration, consultation, and shared accountability among government agencies, local government, civil society, the private sector, and the beneficiaries. Understanding how institutional capacity interacts with stakeholder dynamics allows public administrators to anticipate risk, build legitimacy, and ensure that projects align with public needs and development goals. At this point, may we now give the floor to our presenter to discuss the key concept, frameworks, and practical dimension of institutional capacity and stakeholder engagement in advanced project planning and implementation. Take it away, sir.
So again, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Doc Abante. Good afternoon, classmates. So I'll be presenting the institutional capacity and stakeholders in advanced project planning and implementation. So here's the contents of my report. First, institutional capacity. I will define the word institutional capacity, the dimensions of institutional capacity, stakeholders, categories of stakeholders, stakeholder roles in governance, the relationship between institutional capacity and stakeholders, the importance in development and policy implementation, and of course, lastly, the conclusion. Advanced project planning and implementation require more than technical expertise and financial resources. Two critical determinants of project success are institutional capacity and stakeholders' involvement. So, institutional capacity refers to the overall ability of an organization or institution to plan, implement, manage, and sustain policies, programs, and services effectively. Um, in- Institutional capacity also ensures that organizations have the systems, skills, and structures needed to manage projects effectively, while stakeholders influence project direction, acceptance, and sustainability. So, for you to have a background about this report, this report discusses the role, importance, challenges, and interrelationship between the two. So let's proceed with the dimensions. Dimensions of institutional capacity. First is the human resource. Human resource capacity refers to the ability, quality, skills, experience, and motivation of the people working in an institution. So it includes staffing levels, professional competence, training systems, leadership, and performance management. So, example, no, a regulatory agency like the Bureau of Fisheries, no, we have regulatory functions. We issued licenses for commercial fishing vessels and permits, no. Um, a regulatory agency may have strong laws, but without trained inspectors, enforcement becomes weak. So that's why human resource capacity is very important. Next is legal and policy capacity. Legal and policy capacity refers to an institution's ability to design, interpret, enforce, and implement laws, regulations, policies, and guidelines that guide its operations. So it ensures that actions are legitimate, consistent, and aligned with national development goals. So the institution must have a clear legal mandate, no? For example, the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, our office, no? Um, we are mandated under the Republic Act 8550 as amended by Republic Act 10654. So, nandun yung aming mandates based on that special law, based on that law. So yung authority to enforce rules ay included doon sa um, the said law as legal basis. Next, the financial capacity. Financial capacity refers to an institution's ability to mobilize, manage, allocate, and account for financial resources effectively and transparently. This includes budgeting, revenue generation, financial control, and accountability system. So financial capacity also includes adequate budget, predictable funding sources, then efficient financial management. Alam naman natin that insufficient funding undermines all other forms of capacity. Fund is very important, no? And that's the reason why we um, every time na we conduct budget preparation, no, for the year, nagkakaroon kami ng mga targets using the prescribed form by the Department of Budget and Management, kung saan doon namin nilalatag yung aming programs para sa mga susunod na taon. Para at least ma-prioritize yung mga dapat gawin ng gobyerno, especially sa aming mga stakeholders, which is the fisher folk. Next, technical and operational capacity refers to an institution's ability to carry out its core functions effectively using appropriate technology, systems, infrastructure, and operational processes. It focuses on how work gets done on a day-to-day basis. So this includes technology and data system, monitoring and evaluation tools, and research and analytical capability. So modern governance relies heavily on evidence-based decision making. Next is the institutional culture and governance. It refers to the values, norms, leadership practices, decision-making processes, and accountability structures that shape how an institution behaves and performs. It determines whether an organization operates ethically, transparently, and responsively. So, again, a strong culture promotes trust and legitimacy. No, while a weak culture encourages corruption and inefficiency. Next, stakeholders. Stakeholders are individuals, groups or organizations that have an interest in, are affected by, or can influence institutional decisions and outcomes. So sa amin, sa Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, our stakeholders are yung mga fisher folks, and yung mga commercial fishing companies or business related sa fishing industry. So they are very important. In fact, meron kami sa policy making namin, we have the so-called National Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Management Council, wherein they are the recommendatory body to the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture with regards to sa pag create ng mga policy patungkol sa fisheries. So they are composed of different sectors. Merong academe, merong from commercial fishing companies, meron from small fisher folks. So sila yung nag-policy making body para doon sa pagbuo ng tinatawag na Fisheries Administrative Order na pinipirmahan na o ini-implement naman ng Department of Agriculture. So this is very important kasi at least lahat doon sa konseho naririnig yung boses pantay, merong mga representative from different sectors. So they are essential because institution exists to serve, regulate, or coordinate with society. I remember Attorney Asis Perez, our former boss, ang sabi niya sa amin, the reason why we are here dito sa Bureau of Fisheries because of itong mga fisher folk. mangingisda. Kung walang mangingisda, walang Bureau of Fisheries, which is correct. No? So we are public servants here. Hindi tayo mga boss, hindi tayo, that's just a title, that's just a position. But the primordial duty ng isang public servant is to serve our stakeholders. Next, ito po yung mga categories of stakeholders. We have the so-called internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, primary stakeholders, secondary stakeholders, and key or power stakeholders. Ang internal stakeholders natin tinutukoy dito ay mga empleyado or employees, managers, then kung may governing bodies, they're directly influence the day-to-day operations. While the external stakeholders po ay ito po yung citizens o yung tinutukoy ko kanina mga beneficiaries. The private sector actors, the civil society organization, donors, and international organization. Then the primary stakeholders naman po, they are direct beneficiaries or those directly affected by policies. The secondary stakeholders are indirectly affected groups, no, such as advocacy organization or the media. On the other hand, the power stakeholders po are the policymakers, legislators, o yung mga nagpopondo, the executive, mga top officials, the oversight bodies. They can enable or constrain institutional action. Then the roles in governance. Of course, stakeholders play multiple roles. Number one, policy influence. Because, again, napakahalaga ng role ng mga mangingisda sa pagbuo ng Republic Act 8550. Okay? Nagkaroon pa yan ng SRA na tinatawag kung saan sila, no? Organization nila, nagpalakas sila para itulak na magkaroon ng batas pangpangisdaan. Na? And in fact, no, I remember I am one of the secretariat during the pag-amend ng Republic Act 8550. The reason why we have the so-called amendment ng batas noong 2013 na nagkaroon na naging effective noong 2015 is just because of the external factors. I just want to share this with you guys, classmates. During the time, nagkaroon ban ang Pilipinas sa European Union. Ibig sabihin, bawal na warningan tayo, yellow card, ang Pilipinas na mag-export and import sa Europe. Na? Why? Kasi, ang sabi ng ng EU, ang Pilipinas daw ay masyado ng luma ang RAA 550. Nakita nila yung batas natin. Na kung saan, yung mga parusa doon sa 1991 na RAA 550 is bababa, no? Magkaroon ng halimbawa, illegal activities, dynamite fishing, cyanide, etc. Ang baba ng parusa. So sabi ng European Union, magpapasok kayo ng fisheries product dito, no? Kakainin ng aming citizen. Sigurado pa kami na yan ay galing sa maayos at tamang paghuli. No? Kung saan makikita yung batas ninyo ay napakababa ng mga parusa. Nandun na yung mga 500 to 1,000, etc. So, nagkaroon ng amendments, no? Para lang ma-lift yung ban ng EU. Sobrang laki na naging problema during the time ni former President Pinoy kasi hindi niya alam kung paano babalansin ito. Kasi may external factors na nagpupush na baguhin ang batas, pero may kailangan kang stakeholders. I mean, meron kang citizen na mga maliliit na mga isla na kapag tinaas mo yung mga parusa, maaaring maapektuhan. Which is sa amin, ang ideal namin, well, kung itaas man ito, kung di naman talaga kayo gagawa ng illegal activities, wala namang problema. However, malaki kasi ang problema pa ng pangisdaan sa Pilipinas. No? May mga tinatawag na mga technology or sistema panguhuli nila na kailangan baguhin. So, doon, maraming adjustment, may mga shift pa silang gagawin. So, nahihirapan makasabay yung ating mga mangingisda. Ngayon, yung RA 10654 trivia, yan po ay isang bill, isang batas na nag-lapse into law. No, hindi yan pinirmahan ni President Noynoy. Na, because of internal pressure. Na,
You're done?
I'm sorry, nalobat yung gadget ko.
Okay.
Makikisuyo lang ako sa classmate ko po, sila Sir Chris De Jesus, paki-share screen na lang po. Nakapark lang po ako, pero ready naman po mag-report. Yung presentation ko po, na-send ko po sa group.
Okay, so
But while waiting po, no, just to continue and not to interrupt our discussion, again, nag-lapse into law because of that internal pressure. Kaya hindi siya napirmahan within 30 days na palugit for the president to sign a bill. So, of course, under the law, magiging ganap na batas after publication. So, again, na-lift, to cut the story short, na-lift yung ban. No? At nagkaroon ng amendment ng batas. Tinaas natin lahat ng mga parusa para sa mga illegal activities, and of course nagkaroon ng creation of adjudication board, na kung saan nandoon ako nag-work ngayon as legal researcher and assistant. Next, sir, pwede pong sa mga classmates ko. Sir Chris Labok. Hello?
Okay, sir, hinahanap ko pa, sir.
Sige, nandun sa GC lang, sir. Pasuyo na lang. Pa-share screen lang po para merong Thank you, sir. Gumilid lang kasi ako para mag-report. Anyway, next is yung role is the resource provision. No? We're done sa policy influence now. Resource provision. Resource provision includes funding, expertise, and information. Another role ng stakeholder roles in governance ay yung tinatawag na accountability and oversight. It includes monitoring performance and compliance. Sa Department of Agriculture, no, BFAR, napakahalaga ng role ng mga mangingisda, no, ng stakeholders, even yung commercial sector. In fact, no, kung maalala nyo, nagkaroon nga ng Supreme Court, nasa Supreme Court na ito, na kung saan pinag-uusapan itong paglalagay ng vessel monitoring system sa mga pag-require ng BFAR ng vessel monitoring system sa lahat ng mga commercial fishing vessels na maglalayag sa teritoryo ng Pilipinas o sa dagat ng Pilipinas. So, kinontest ito, no, because of the privacy issue. Yung mga ganung bagay, no, yan yung namomonitor nila. Hindi naman kasi porket you are the agency responsible for the said industry, lahat ng mga policy ilalabas mo ay sasang-ayon sila, no? Marami namang mga bagay na kung saan kaya nga yung iba, no, talagang nagpipiket or nagrarally pa kung may mga pinalabas na polisiya ang isang ahensya na sa tingin nila degrading or talagang apektuhan yung kanilang sector. Next, implementation support or resistance. Dalawa lang yan, no? Once you issued policy, talagang meron kang masasagasaan, but sabi nga sa legal term, no, jura lex sed lex, the law may be harsh but still it is the law. So may mga sectors na or stakeholders talaga na co-cooperate, and hindi natin may iwasan yung mga opposition. Well, overall, no, ignoring stakeholders often results in policy resistance, non-compliance, or failure. Ang isang management o isang ahensya na hindi pinapansin, no, ang kanyang yung kanyang stakeholders, ang tend nito ay talagang magkaroon ng policy resistance or failure, no, doon sa management because they are involved, no, dito sa industry na ito. Then the relationship, no? Next, the relationship between institutional capacity and stakeholders. Institutional capacity and stakeholders are interdependent. No? Next, because how institutional capacity affects stakeholders, strong capacity, effective service delivery, increased trust. Now, weak capacity, okay, weak capacity to tend to poor performance, then ang result nito ay stakeholder dissatisfaction. So, paano naman how stakeholders affect institutional capacity? Supportive stakeholders strengthen capacity. And of course, political interference or resistance weakens capacity. Capacity is not only internal, it is also shaped by the external stakeholder environment. So, para lang magkaroon ng, just to give you a parang kabuuan nito, no? Let us consider sa atin, sa health department natin ngayon. So, we need trained health workers, which is the human capacity. Then we need, it also requires legal authority to regulate facilities, which is the legal capacity. Then depends on the budget allocation. So, yan po ay papasok sa financial capacity. Then they must engage patients, hospital, and NGOs na kung saan sila yung tinutukoy na stakeholders. So, yun po yung kabuuan nito. Next, importance in development and policy implementation. In development context, weak institutions lead to aid misuse. Poor stakeholders' engagements lead to policy rejection. Sustainable development requires both capacity building and stakeholders' participation. For the conclusion, next slide. To conclude, institutional capacity determines what institutions can do. Stakeholders influence how well institution can do it. Then, effective governance requires strong institutional foundations, inclusive and strategic stakeholders engagement. Policies succeed not only because they are well designed, but because institutions are capable and stakeholders are engaged. That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Again, institutional capacity forms the backbone of successful public projects because it determines whether plans can be translated into action. And this capacity includes clear organizational mandates, competent leadership, skilled personnel, adequate financial resources, and effective administrative system. When institutions are weak or fragmented, projects often suffer from delays, cost overruns, poor coordination, and work sustainability. Weak sustainability, regardless of how innovative the project design may be. So again, the interaction between institutional capacity and stakeholders is dynamic and mutually reinforcing. Strong institutions are better positioned to manage diverse stakeholder interests, resolve conflict, and maintain project momentum. At the same time, engaged stakeholders can strengthen institutional capacity by providing local knowledge, resources, feedback, and social legitimacy that formal structures alone cannot operate. So institutional capacity and stakeholder engagement should be viewed as strategic assets rather than procedural requirements. So for you, for doctoral level public administration practitioners, mastering this concept means able to design and implement projects that are not only technically sound, but also politically feasible, socially accepted, and institutional sustainable. This integrated perspective is what distinguishes advanced project planning from routine project management in the public sector. Okay? Do we have question or inputs? Question or inputs? Okay, Sir Carl.
Yes, sir. Curious lang po ako, no, kasi kanina nabanggit doon sa report kanina, the amendment ng batas with respect to doon sa ano. I just want to ask if that law po ba is effective or meron pa rin po bang reservation ng EU sa atin concerning po dun sa pag-ban nila ng fisheries?
Ay, good morning, Carl. Actually po, effective na po siya. Na-lift na po yung ban, yung yellow card ban. Sa ngayon po ay tuloy-tuloy na po yung ating export and import sa European Union po.
Okay po, salamat po. Curious lang ako sir kasi ang laki pong usapan talaga nung ano na yan, ng batas po na yan buti nga po
opo.
na-amend at na-lift na rin po yung ban ng EU. Thank you sir so much. Salamat po.
Okay po. Okay po. And just to add, no, kasi ang Pilipinas kasi, ang ating ekonomiya, pagdating sa agriculture and fishery sector, ang European Union po kasi ngayon, bukod sa China, pagdating sa ating import-export po, nakadepende rin po talaga tayo rin dahil malaki yung percentage, no? Ang China po is pagdating sa fisheries, nasa 45 to 50%, no? Doon tayo nakadepende, doon natin binabato yung ating mga produkto at ganoon din sila. So ang EU po nasa 30 to I think 35%, no? Then yung iba po nakakalat na. Kaya nung na-yellow card po ang Pilipinas, medyo talaga namang madali ang naamyendahan. Yan ang isa sa mga madali ang batas na naamyendahan sa kasaysayan. Dahil napuwersa, no? Through Senator Cynthia Villar, because at the time, she was the chairperson ng Agriculture and Fisheries po, Food and Agriculture sa Senate. Kaya nag-draft kagad ang BIFAR, no? ng batas para siya naman yung mag-champion do sa Senate. So that's all po. Thank you. Sir. Na-commute po kayo, sir. Sir
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification, Sir Sir Carl. Let me respond to it from the perspective of synthesis and reflection as a professor. That is actually a very good point to raise. Whether the law is effective or whether there are still reservations, particularly regarding the gasoline ban. As you correctly pointed out, the law has already taken effect and the ban was lifted, including the yellow card ban, which clearly shows that corrective measures and compliance mechanism work. Because of this, our export and import activities with the European Union have now resumed continuously, indicating institutional and policy effectiveness. However, what is important to emphasize in our discussion is that legal effectiveness does not automatically mean the absence of reservation. While compliance was achieved on paper and in practice, lingering concerns may still exist at the implementation and monitoring levels. This is where project tools, governance mechanism, and continuous stakeholder engagement remain critical to ensure sustainability, prevent policy backsliding, and maintain international confidence. So that the key takeaway here is that laws can be effective, but their long-term success depends on consistent enforcement, political will, and institutional capacity, not just on passage or lifting of ban. For yung sa sagot ni Sir, let me react also from the policy and governance perspectives. What you highlighted, Sir, clearly illustrate how external pressure can accelerate legislative action. When our products were affected, especially with figures reaching around 32 to 35% exposure, the economic impact became too significant to ignore. So the yellow card situation placed the Philippines in a position where delays was no longer an option. As a result, the amendment of the law became one of the fastest legislative responses in the recent history, not purely out of proactive reform, but because the country was compelled to act to protect national economic interests. So your reference to Senator Cynthia Villar's rules as chair of the Senate Committee on Agricultural Fisheries is also important. It shows how institutional positioning and political leadership can influence the speed and direction of policy reform. So the immediate sponsorship and championing of the amended law in the Senate demonstrate how our governance often operates at the intersection of urgency, no? Economic risk and political will. This case reinforces a critical lesson for advanced public administration. While laws may be framed as technical solutions, their passage and success are frequently driven by political context, external pressure, and strategic leadership rather than ideal planning. Okay? Okay, meron pa?
Thank you,
Quick
sir.
rejoinder,
Thank you so much po.
quick rejoinder, sir.
Okay ka na, Sir Balanay? Okay na pa?
Quick rejoinder lang po, sir. It affects food security at the time and environmental protection under the context of public administration. It affects also public safety and security. Kaya po pinabilisan po yung paggawa ng batas na yon para ma-address yung concerns sa food security and yung environmental protection. Maraming salamat po, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification again, and I'd like to affirm that point from a public administration lens. Yes, you are absolutely right. No, in the context of public administration, this issue goes beyond trade and economics and directly affects public safety and security. And the decision to fast track the passage of the law was not merely a political response, but a strategic governance action to address food security, environmental protection, and broader national interest concerns. So when public safety and sustainable are at stake, no, the state has both the authority and responsibility to act decisively. No? Your explanation highlights an important principle in advanced project planning and policy implementation. Urgency can be justified when grounded in public welfare objectives. So the accelerated lawmaking process serves as a corrective mechanism to restore international trust, protect natural resources, and ensure continuity, no, in food supply chain. So this case demonstrates how effective public administration requires balancing technical evidence, political realities, and security considerations to deliver outcomes that safeguard both present and our future generation. Thank you so much. Very ano po yung topic natin.